Hello and welcome everybody to the Web and Beyond Webinars webinar for today, April 15th, 2021. And this is Lessons from a Year Going Live. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sidney-Smith. I am president of W3 Consulting and managing director of W3C Web Services, which is our WordPress and web hosting company. We also do domain name registration services and other web related services for small business. And in addition to being at W3 Consulting and W3C Web Services, I also happen to be an Evernote certified consultant as well as the Google Small Business Advisor for productivity. And so, as you can imagine, I'm excited about all things related to Evernote and Google. So, if you have any questions about those things, you can always reach out to us and we can help you get started there. So I wanted to go through our agenda for today. Today, what we're going to be doing is walking through, first and foremost, the benefits of live streams as I've experienced them. I'll kind of tell my story so that you can understand where I'm coming from and some of the benefits I've experienced from that. We'll then go into what I'm going to consider my 5 lessons from a year going live, and I will walk you through each of those lessons. And what I really want to do here is to kind of present a set of questions that you can ask yourself as you think about going live. What are the things that you should be thinking about in order to have more successful individual live streams, that is, but really overall as a strategy as well, just making going live something that's effective for your business if that's something that you want to be able to do. Next is how to get started. And I just wanted to give you a few kind of starting steps to be able to get yourself started with that. And then if we have any questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer those questions when we get to our Q&A portion of the webinar. So with that, let's get started with our lessons from a year going live. And to do that, let's start off with really the story that got me started here, which is that I started Web and Beyond Live, which is a weekly live stream really around the end of January 2020. And I did that as a mechanism for, it was just like a starting point for me to present. It was around cybersecurity and I wanted to do something interesting. And I just thought, you know what, let me go live and just answer questions for folks that had questions about cybersecurity issues and that kind of thing. And, because, part of my ongoing thoughts are that digital marketing is so tightly bound to cybersecurity and we don't talk about it enough, and we just need to make sure that we're paying attention to that as small business owners so that we're not impacting not only our own business operations but also not impacting our customers' data privacy and security. And so I just thought, let me go live and do this and test it out and see how it works out. And then from there, I really just decided that I was going to go live every week and just keep going. So I just decided to keep going and going live every week, and I've been doing so, ever since January of 2020. And it's been really remarkable. So I go live weekly, usually on Mondays around 11 a.m. Eastern, and the show runs approximately about 30 minutes or so. And based on that experience is really where I'm coming at these lessons from a year going live. This live stream show that I've put together where I really try to cover digital marketing news from a timely perspective, but I'm also trying to cover it from really my perspective on what's going on in the world and how I'm kind of reading the tea leaves and the data that is out there and trying to give you my interpretation as well as my opinions. That's a little bit more off the cuff. It's not as formal, say, as here during a webinar or something else like that. I'm really providing this from a perspective of being a little bit more casual, a little bit more informal. And just as one other item here, I am taking and ripping the audio from the live streams and putting them into a podcast format as well. So that's really the structure around which this Lessons from a Year Going Live was, really came about for me, was this whole notion of launching Web and Beyond Live and really seeing it grow into what it is now for me today. Most of the people who actually watch the Web and Beyond Live actually watch it after the fact, by the way. So also kind of keep that in mind, which is that most of the viewers of the live stream recordings are watching it after the fact. And so that's something you also have to kind of grapple with, which is that you may not have the largest audience live in person, and even to the effect that I don't do a lot of marketing around the live streams themselves, and I should, but we'll get into that as well. So from here, let me kind of walk us through some of the benefits that I've kind of felt myself from doing the live streams. And I'll start with just the main premise, which is that I really don't like video. I don't like being on video. I don't like my voice on video. And those are all things that I'm particularly, I've gotten over the voice part of it because I've been podcasting for years and years. But certainly being on camera is not my comfort zone, and I had to really get over that, and Web and Beyond Live was a mechanism for me being able to do that. So that's kind of a really a tangential benefit of all of this. But I'll say that the benefits that I've first kind of seen from my own experience going live is certainly the increased subscribers on YouTube. And so on YouTube specifically, I just wanted to be able to start growing my number of subscribers, and I thought, well, going live should be able to do that. And I found this to be quite interesting overall. And I'm just pulling up on screen here the number of views that we got for 2020, just solely within 2020. So you can see that overall, all of our videos got about 40,000 views. And as a little bit of background, I have a whole series of webinars, these webinars that are on YouTube, and so we get quite a number of views from people watching those webinars, and especially those about Google, since I'm the Google Small Business Advisor for Productivity. But you can see here that the number of people who are watching the webinars and becoming subscribers is very different than the number of people who are coming across the live stream and actually becoming a subscriber to the channel. And so over the course of just 2020, if we just snapshot it within 2020, we saw a 50% increase in our number of subscribers all told. So we had roughly we had roughly about 800 subscribers before 2020. Once I started the live stream, we gained almost 400 new subscribers from going live each week. And so that was a remarkable kind of find for me. I didn't expect for us to be for us to grow that fast. And I guess I also had expectations set really low. And so that is something that you have to be mindful of. Doing these kinds of weekly live streams is not I'm going to go live, for a month and all of a sudden I'm going to have 10,000 subscribers. It really is a slow burn building strategy. And as you build new people, then you get more and more people who engage with you, who come to your live streams, who come and go, and they come back 5 weeks later because life happens. All of those things kind of come about. But in terms of that, we have definitely seen an increase in subscribers, and we are now in 2021 seeing even a faster subscriber rate. So we're seeing more and more people subscribe at a higher percentage increase month over month, which has been really fascinating to watch. Next up is beyond just subscribers, we have more people who are actually contacting the services. Something that I found really interesting is that I just decided at the beginning of every live stream to identify who I was and the services that our web services provides. And that's been really great for the business. It just gets more people contacting us with questions about things, and that obviously leads to sales. And if it's about sales and revenue, obviously for the business, it's really great to be getting those kinds of contacts. And so people call and write in and say, hey, this issue has come up. Is this something that you can be able to help with? And if we are, then that's great to be able to do. So we've definitely seen more people contacting our web services end of the business. And that was the point, is to tell people about the services, get it in front of people. And that's been really, really great. Next is just a better marketing strategy coming from the work that I'm doing. Now, this may be marginal or very specific to me, but the fact of the matter is that I'm talking about marketing strategy, and I'm reading, a whole bunch of material every week, getting ready for the live streams. And for us, that really meant me thinking more about our marketing strategy more often. And so of course, because I'm teaching digital marketing, I'm thinking about marketing strategy. But for you, I think that it can be really beneficial from the perspective that if you are coming to a live stream, you're going on camera, however often you go, you are in essence forcing yourself to have to think about your business and to think about the the content that you provide within the business. And that can be incredibly helpful to you to just always have that touch point. So you can think about it from the perspective that you can be thinking about your marketing strategy each week when you go live, but you can also be thinking about it from the perspective that what new ideas are these generating that might create other more expansive ideas for the business every week. And so use this as an opportunity to think about what you're doing on your business and in your business each week as you're going live, or however often you're going to be going live. So those are some of the benefits that I have experienced from going live. I definitely, like I said before, I've gotten more comfortable going live on camera. I still don't like being on camera, but those are just realities that we have to face as we see more and more content going to a video perspective. And so with those benefits out of the way, what I want to do now is talk about each of the lessons that I feel like are useful to you as we make our way forward through the webinar. So first and foremost, lesson number one is really about having an agenda and a goal. And what I mean by that is that for the show as a whole, you're going to have to think about a couple of things. One is, what are you going to talk about? Going live each week, you have to have some level of content that you're ready to talk about each week. And that could be anything from doing AMAs, which are like the Ask Me Anything type live streams where you're going live and you're depending upon the audience that's showing up to ask you questions to be able to drive the conversation. I've always felt that that just wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to be able to have a set of topics to talk about, but you may be able to do that, especially if you have a vibrant audience that's showing up and asking lots of questions. Also, what's your goal for going live generally? Like, what's your goal for the live streams? You should have some level of perspective. For me, I wanted more people obviously learning about what web services does, and W3C Web Services, providing something that I think most small business owners need, which is they need domains, they need web hosting, and they need either Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace for email and document storage and sharing and collaboration, and they need those tools. They're fundamental to the business operating today. That letting them know about that upfront really is helpful to obviously to the business, but that's ultimately the one of the goals for the live stream. The other for us was really to just educate small businesses and to keep repeating strategies and digital marketing techniques that we believe are useful and practical for business owners to know about. And so that's just been really great for me, being able to recognize how I present those strategies to businesses and then to keep repeating it over time. So what's your goal for going live? And what are you may have multiple goals, but identifying what are those goals. And then this is more of a tactical issue, which is that what I've found is that we go live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And remarkably, the title of the live stream has a great deal of effect both on the people who you have a reminder button on YouTube, for example. You can kind of like remind me that this video is upcoming, and then you'll get a notification. We get more people who click that button when the title of the live stream is specific and the topic is interesting to them. And then subsequent to the live stream, when people are searching for content on YouTube or elsewhere, we see a really big difference in the number of people who actually watch those recordings based on the live stream. So, for example, we had one episode where I talked about the US government having been hacked, right? And there was this big hack of the US government databases, and there was a lot of discussion around it. And that ended up being one of our most watched episodes because of the title. And that probably exposed us to a lot more people that otherwise wouldn't have really found the show and learned about me and about some of the digital marketing topics that we're talking about, purely because they were focused on other things. And so this is one of those cases where you have to think a little bit about SEO as you're making your way forward in doing this work. Make sure that you're titling the live streams ahead of schedule and they're specific to what you're going to talk about. So if you have a show about, health and wellness, you want to make sure that health and wellness show is not necessarily, you're not just placing the name of the show and thinking every week it's just going to be the name of the show. You really want to hone in and say, what is this show going to be specifically about? Now, I run into this challenge with Web and Beyond Live because each week it may be about something that is more timely, like something that's happening in the news. And so that's really difficult for me because I can't title it ahead of schedule always, because if something big happens in the news, I want to be able to do that. So I've been working to see whether or not some weeks they're going to be more on specific topics that are useful and practical to the viewer, to the attendees, and if it's not something that's more, kind of like something that I can talk about any week in that given month or maybe in the next few months, it's going to be something a little more timeless. Then I will place the Web and Beyond live as the title, and then maybe an hour or two before the live stream, I'll actually change the title to what it actually ends up going to be in terms of being something more related to news or otherwise. So that's been how we've been doing it. But if you're really capable of knowing the title ahead of time, make sure that you title it ahead of time so that people know what they're coming to, and that's going to be more beneficial to you. Okay, on to lesson two. Lesson two is about infrastructure. Going live is seemingly more simple today than ever before. Every platform has the capability of you going live now, including LinkedIn. Has brought a live stream capability to it, even though you have to apply, and it's not really particularly, they're not bringing a lot of people onto the platform as they should be. You can go live everywhere. But the reality is that good infrastructure is so necessary here, because even though the platforms allow you to all go live, that doesn't mean that you probably have the right equipment and everything else out the gate to do that. You could absolutely go live on your phone very easily and be good to go. But the reality is that you probably need a little bit more than what you have regarding some aspects of this. And we'll talk about that as we make our way through. So what does it mean to get good infrastructure? The first thing for me was, how are you going to stream your live video? Are you going to be streaming it from a desktop computer, from a laptop? Are you going to be streaming from a phone or a mobile tablet? And really deciding how you're going to be doing that, and making sure that you have a couple of things. One is a solid platform. And by that, I mean a solid platform means that the hardware and the software you're using to be able to go live are things that you know well enough and work well enough so that you don't have problems every, say if you're going live once a week, that each week you're not struggling and fumbling to make that work. I know that I experienced that myself in going live, which with just like making sure that I had the right setup and the right platform that I was using. I had several different platforms that I tried, that is software that I tried to be able to go live with. And I ultimately ended up landing on StreamYard and using StreamYard as my platform, because it provided at least the least number of problems and failure points along the way of going live each week. You can try different platforms. Vimeo Live exists. There are other platforms like BeLive and otherwise that you could also use. But just making sure that you have a really solid tool set for being able to go live. And that means that you can consistently know how to set up the live stream. You can know how to deal with turning on and off your camera and audio, and making sure that you're capable of doing what you need to in the live stream. So for example, if you were deciding to go live on YouTube, just using YouTube Live, you could use your mobile phone, a mobile tablet, or a computer or laptop and go live exclusively just using YouTube Live in the browser. You wouldn't need anything else in order to be able to do that. Only if you were going live and only being yourself on video. That is, you're just your face on camera to the audience. And that's really great. It's powerful. You're capable of doing that all using YouTube Live, because YouTube Live allows that to be done. The moment you want to show a screen, you want to be able to bring an additional person on, say if your show is going to have guests, or if you wanted to bring audience members into the show, you couldn't do that with YouTube Live. You would need to use a different platform in order to do that. So that's what I mean by thinking about what infrastructure do you need and how do you want to do things. Choose a platform that's obviously going to be able to make that work. Next is sufficient internet bandwidth. This is like one of the most important components of being able to do that. And internet bandwidth means your connection between your device and the internet, right? And you can't really control things beyond that in terms of connectivity issues and other things. But really, your internet bandwidth is so important. And this really means that what's the router, the modem, and your connection to that router and modem to the device. And so many times this has to do with the power of the device itself, the bandwidth connection from your ISP, and all kinds of other things that kind of go on. Next up is the right environment and making sure that you are in the right environment for going live. Obviously, during the pandemic, we're all dealing with, uh, you know, spouses who are making noise in the background. There are dogs and kids, and there are all kinds of other things happening in the environments. But generally, you want to be able to find a quiet place with the right kind of setup for you to be able to feel good to make a connection with your audience. Because remember, going live is a little bit different than, say, pre-recorded or a closed studio type recording on video, or even doing things like being in a webinar like this where I have the PowerPoint slides on screen and I'm basically talking to you in real time with those slides on screen. I could be on camera as well, but for the most part, it's a formal presentation, a little bit different than, say, a casual, more it's like a little bit more intimacy in those live streams because you're talking to the audience and having a conversation with them, really, rather than being in a more formal presentation environment. And so you want to be in the right environment, which means making sure that you have the right things around you for doing that. Your favorite drink, you making sure that you have an appropriate background for being able to have people kind of feel like they're cozying up with you and having a conversation. And so that's really important as well. This also includes having the right equipment to be able to go live. And that can include camera and any other devices that are necessary to make sure that you're going live. I don't want to get too far into the weeds here because these are really my lessons from going live, not necessarily how to go live, but really making sure that you have the right equipment is going to be really important and powerful. Understand that audio is the most important component that you're going to have when it comes to going live. Your audience needs to be able to track with the conversation, and if they have poor audio and poor connectivity to that audio, they're just not going to have as good an experience. So making sure that you have good audio is, I think, even if you have like grainy video, even if you go off of video, it won't make as much of a difference as it will if people can't really understand what you're saying. So making sure that your equipment is really good so that your audio is good. Obviously, having good video equipment and so on and so forth is also important, but like behind sound. Sound is going to be ultimately the most important component there for you. All right, so moving along to lesson number 3, which is really all about, for me, it was about finding the right time. It took me a lot of time to really get the right equipment together. And then once I got all the equipment together and kind of got into the right cadence of being able to go live, I chose to go live weekly. And it has been a little bit of a struggle to figure out what the right time is that people want to be watching this. I know that if I shift off the schedule, people tend not to attend, but if I do it at the same time, even if it's not quite the right time for everybody else and it's the right time for me, that ends up working well enough that people do attend. So it's kind of just getting and figuring that part out. Now, if you have a larger audience, you can ask people and ask what's going on, and that's what I would suggest, which is to just ask your audience when the best time for them to attend these live streams. Note that they don't always know the right answer there. You will get people who will. I recently had this with a client. She surveyed her entire audience to figure out when the right time was to go live, and what they said to her was clearly not the time in which the people were mostly attending. And so she had to adjust her live streams to be able to move it to the time when she knew people were attending, and also from the data of when people were actually watching the recordings. And so if you can see when people are actually watching the recordings, then you're able to go ahead and go live during that time frame so that those people can just be there with you live as opposed to having to watch it after the fact. And so that might mean moving your video to a later time. It may mean moving and adjusting to a few times throughout the week so that you're capable of just really being better able to have a live audience there. Having a live audience there, I'll say this from my own personal experience, it's just really great. Even if it's a few people that are live when you're getting started and so on and so forth, it's just really nice to have those people there to just give you that energy and to kind of go from there. Again, I have not really, I've really focused on doing this with as few people as possible. I know that's a little bit counterintuitive, but I've been doing it with as few people as possible as I've been doing these live streams, and I've not really promoted it to my own, audience generally that they're happening. I that's just been my nature to do that, and I do need to kind of promote it more out there to the world. But the reality is that for most businesses, you're going to want to have a live audience there and to have really as many people there as you can comfortably speak to. And it's good to start, like with me, after really over a year of doing it live. I still don't think that I've got all the pieces together, which is why I'm not really promoting it, beyond my really core group of people, and the few stragglers who find it on YouTube and watch it, and that's great, whatever. But the reality is that once I feel like I've got it in a position that I really feel comfortable with, then I'll probably more widely, expose it to, our email list and to the world and that kind of thing, and even put maybe ad dollars behind it to get a larger audience seeing that content. But really, starting out first, just ask your audience when the best time is to go live, and they will frequently tell you, and hopefully that information will work. But I usually recommend that you test different times if you don't have a large enough audience, and just see when there are a few core people who will attend, and those few core people are really important to you, and it gets you an audience that will give you feedback and constructive criticism, all the things you're going to need to be able to level up as you make your way forward. Finally, review your video analytics. As I said, before, you want to view your video analytics to make sure you know when people are watching, and figuring out whether or not that's useful or not useful. Being someone who is speaking to small business owners, I have to be mindful of the fact that those small business owners are probably running their businesses during the day. And so, I might be best to do evening times, but then they might be with family. And so them being able to watch it after the fact is probably the most convenient thing for them. But it's also, for those who do want to watch it live and gather together live with others, I want to be able to set it at a time that's useful. And so far, my Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern just are working. We'll see if that stays that way going forward. But my lesson is absolutely, you have to find the right time. Next to last is all about engaging with your audience. So when you do have an audience that's live during a live stream, it's a little bit different than other types of formal environments. This is a casual setting, and so you can stop what you're talking about and respond to people who are making comments in the live stream. Certain platforms also, by the way, are going to delay your feed. So you may have 30, 60-second delay between when someone makes a comment and otherwise. And because of that delay, you may be commenting about things after you've moved on, and that's okay. Just get used to the fact that there's just always going to be a little bit of a delay sometimes between when people have conversations about things, and people are pretty good about tracking between those. But Lesson 4 is all about engaging with your audience. Engaging with your audience means, one, you have to give clear directions to your audience regarding how to engage with them. It's very difficult for people to not understand how they're supposed to engage with you when you want to be engaged with in a particular way, right? So this is really asking people, okay, if you have questions, ask them and explain to them how to do that in the chat. Many times people don't know how to do that, and so therefore they're really unaware of how to actually do those things. So make sure that you're giving clear directions to your audience about how to chat during the live stream, and after the live stream people will still have questions. So if you're going live and that live stream, say, doesn't have a recording facility, you're using a particular platform where you don't plan to record those or have that available after the fact, then how should people interact with you after the live stream? If it's going to be recorded and placed in a place, that has comments. Are you going to continue to engage with people in those comments, or do you want them to send you an email instead and not engage with you in the comments of that platform? So, for example, we're not highly engaged on Facebook. We'll still respond and answer to people on Facebook, but I always tell people, tweet at us at W3 Consulting and on Twitter, because I'm more likely to respond to you pretty quickly there, as opposed to, within a day or two, getting back around to responding on Facebook. And of course, for YouTube comments, I can answer pretty quickly on YouTube as well. So I try to give people that kind of instruction so that they know how to engage with us both during the live event and afterward as well. And that includes that call to action, right? Because the live streams are in purpose of something. What's the purpose that you really want people to do? Do you want people to go ahead and interact with you for a goal or multiple goals? And what are the calls to action? Next up is, of course, teaching people about the tools. One of the big issues is that if you're going live using a multi-stream tool like I am with StreamYard, I'm going live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The reality is that on each of those platforms, the way in which people are going to be able to interact with you is going to be different. And so that creates an immediate challenge. It's one of the reasons why I've really directed most people to come to us through YouTube, and that way they're able to interact with us in the same way. But the reality is that no matter what tools you're using, you need to give people at least some light education about how to use those tools. You may even think about putting those instructions on your own website so that people know, here goes my live stream, this is when it's going to happen, and this is how you actually engage with us on the platforms in which we're going live. So if you're going live on Facebook Live, make sure that you have instructions on the website that say, hey, by the way, during the live stream, there is a chat panel on the right-hand side, and you can go ahead and do that. And on mobile, you're going to see the chat panel below the video, and that's how you go ahead and engage with us. And you can feel free to hit the hearts and comment in the chat below. We really would enjoy you engaging with us that way. So just make sure that you're talking to people about how the tool works, because many times this is the first time they're interacting or engaging with the tool, and that can be very disorienting for them to be able to engage with you in a way that makes sense while not knowing how to use the tool. So just always presume that it's the first time people are using the tool, and that way they get a little bit of an education along the way, and that'll make them feel more comfortable with coming back the next time as well. Make sure that you're also following up with asynchronous engagement. That is, after the live stream, people are in essence going to want to talk to you. They'll ask questions before the upcoming live stream, and I get this quite often. I get a lot of emails from people who are interested in me covering a particular topic for an upcoming live stream, and many of those end up turning into ideas for webinars, not for the live stream, because really I want to stick the live stream to being more timely, topical news focused items that are, they're just timely items, as opposed to being things that are more timeless. And so this webinar format gives me that opportunity to really put that material into a more formalized outline. And so those emails are very valuable to me. I just happen to not use them in the Web and Beyond Live format. You could, though. You could use topics that people bring up as future topics for the live streams. So make sure that you're thinking about how you're going to handle that engagement that's not happening during the live stream itself. And it goes back to my other point earlier, right, which is just giving people instructions. If you give them clear instructions during the live streams about how to interact both before the live stream and after the live stream, then people will know what to do just generally. And, most people are pretty, they'll do it if you ask them to, and they're pretty compliant. And so just make sure that you're following and paying attention to comments and emails and being responsive to those. I just think it's really important that your audience doesn't feel like it's only during the live streams that they can interact with you, because if they feel like they can interact with you asynchronously, then they're more likely to then attend live and engage with you in that environment as well. All right, so lesson number 5 is going to be one that I have continually been challenged by, and it's one that I frequently am the one telling other people that they need to fix. And so I'm going to show you on screen. I think this was my first live stream, but I'm not sure. But at this time, we were using Zoom to live stream to YouTube Live, I believe it was. And just look at this image and in your head think, or in the chat, you can go ahead in the chat and tell me what you think the problem is with this particular screenshot, this live stream that we I took a screenshot from. What do you think the problem is? I'll tell you what the problem is. It was lighting. Okay, so the lighting in this circumstance just could not have been worse. Now it just so happens that I was on the road. I was in a hotel room, and I that was the best I could do at that moment. I actually hadn't anticipated having to do the live stream in that environment and all kinds of other things, but that was January 2020, and I've learned a thing or two about this. And just good lighting cannot be underestimated. Just think about how you have good lighting. Many times what people have is either too much lighting, and that's one of my problems currently in the working from home environment during the pandemic. I'm oversaturated with light in my environment, and so I have to work to be able to actually block light while I'm in my recording environment. And the good lighting though tends to be then people who have a window behind them. The window behind them means that they look like a ghost because they're just a dark outline, and they all have all of this light shining into the camera from around them. And then, of course, not enough lighting, which is not enough lighting cast onto them and onto really your face, right? Because people are trying to make out facial expressions and see you, and really just generally you look better when you have good lighting. So I can't more recommend that you produce get the equipment for having good lighting. There are ring lights. There are ways in which you can set up lamps around you to be able to just have good lighting on your face, that they're not casting any major shadows. And while there are other folks out there who make a big to do about how much light is cast behind you, having virtual backgrounds, all of those kinds of things, really for live streams, it's not worth it to get too crazy about that. What I really want you to do is just have good lighting on your face, and making sure that it's not too much, but just enough so that you look good and people can make out your facial expressions. Now, make no doubt about it. Good hydration, having enough sleep, and having a good camera are going to make you look better for your audience. But without good lighting, you just really aren't going to look very good no matter what, right? You're just going to look paltry on camera, and that's just not a great experience for the audience, really. You can't be as confident on camera if you don't feel that good lighting kind of moment. And so make sure that you pick the right lights. For example, my ring light that I use for live streams has the ability to change from like a yellow to a white to a blue, going up to that highest Kelvin count. And so it gives me that range of abilities to be able to get different colors based on really what the lighting in the space is doing. If it's a really overcast day and therefore it's kind of white light coming into the space, well, I can go ahead and change the light color of the ring so that it casts that kind of light on me, and therefore I'm not looking washed out and otherwise. Or I might turn it to yellow because it gives me a little bit more color on my face than the vast white light around me. So just keeping that in mind as you make your way through the situation. And so that is lesson number 5. And so those are my 5 lessons, right? And just as a recap, right, we want to basically have a good goal, right? Have an agenda for each live stream, but also have a good goal. You want to make sure that you get the right equipment, get the right infrastructure, the right platform to use for that. You want to find the right time for being able to go live each, say, if you're going multiple times a week or once a month, you decide on that. But just figuring out when the right time is to go live, you want to make sure that you're engaging with your audience and you have good lighting. And so with that, what I want to do now is just cover a couple of items in regard to getting started going live. And I know it's really difficult for people to kind of think about what they're going to do to go live. And so I just wanted to give kind of 4 steps for you to be able to set yourself up for going live in general. So first and foremost, as I said before, like one of my big lessons was that I needed to have a reason for going live, but I really needed both goals and agendas that actually matched up with each other. And I found that at least when I first started going live, I didn't see the connection. What I was going live for and my goals were just not matching up really well. And it took me a long time to kind of figure out what and how those two pieces connected to each other. And so take the time to really build an agenda that's flexible, that you can use each week, and will have content that will work for your audience, but that match up to the goals really easily. So, what is it that you want people to ultimately do when they leave the webinar, the live streams, and making sure that your agenda really has a framework, it's a template really that you can plug in the content and it all flows. So, for example, you may decide that you're going to do a beginning piece where you just say hello to folks as they enter the live stream. I don't particularly do that, but I know other folks who are much more comfortable with doing that because they're native in the platform. And since the tool that I'm using is multi-streaming, I'm not really actually able to see the individuals as you are, say, if you did an Instagram live and you can actually see the individual names of people coming in. I don't know that people are in the system unless they actually chat and say hello in the chat from the various platforms. And so it's a little bit more difficult for me to kind of do that. And since I'm recording for the podcast as well, I kind of just want to get right into the material. And so I find myself kind of jump starting it with an immediate introduction and going into it. But really, again, it's about knowing your audience, knowing how you want to engage with them, and what you want to do with that content after the fact. Because easily you could just go ahead and chop off that part if you were going to do a podcast of the audio content of your live streams easily, right? So you can kind of work with it from that perspective. But build the agenda. Are you going to do a little bit of like intro, casual conversation with the crowd, and then start the live stream? The next portion of the live stream after that in the agenda, what is that going to look like? Are you going to have a formal set of like a formal script that you read that kind of is how you introduce yourself? Are you then going to go into a main topic, or are you going to have different segments in the live stream? Is it just going to be one block segment where you do one type of content throughout the entire show, and then close out with some kind of wrap up, closing remarks, or call to action, right? And what is that call to action that you want people to have after the end of each show? It could be something as clear and direct as check out X or Y, or it could be, all right, between now and next week, I've given you kind of an assignment, right? Something that they can do in order to be able to do that and then come back and talk about it in the next live stream. So you have some options there in terms of building an agenda, but you have to have a way to flow, to have flow in the show so that you are not just showing up and, staring at a blank at the camera blankly and people expecting you to really lead them. You have to have that tied in. And for you as a business owner, you need to think about this from a goals perspective. Really, why are you doing this, and how is it going to build your email list? How is it going to build your, some part of the funnel additionally, or, generally, and, kind of getting yourself organized in that sense. Next up, choosing your live stream platform. This is really important. For some of you, you know exactly where your audience is. Your audience may just be exclusively on Facebook. Your audience may be exclusively on Twitter and maybe on Instagram. And so you're just really going to go live on that platform, and you don't need any other platform tools or otherwise to be able to do that. And that's great. If you are in a business that you want to basically spray that is, multi-stream to many different platforms, you may then want to choose another tool that can do that. And I said, there's StreamYard and there's BeLive and there's other platforms that can do that kind of thing. And so then you'll need to be able to choose that platform and go live using those technologies. But you really want to choose all of those tools upfront for platform purposes. And then after you've chosen your platform, say that you did use Vimeo Live. Well, Vimeo Live has a live stream studio, which is its software for being able to go live. Great. Now you need to get equipment that works with the live stream studio to make sure that you're going live with equipment that's going to immediately work with the platform that you've chosen. So you're going to get the cameras, you're going to get the right computer, you're going to get the right infrastructure that is broadband, making sure your broadband is fast enough, making sure that all of that stuff is really set so that you're able to go live in a very comfortable, consistent way without having to have all of this stuff constantly in flux. It's just very, very difficult to focus on the content and focus on connecting with your audience when you're too worried about the technology not working. So really focus on making sure you get that done out the gate and setting that up. I also recommend having a backup plan. So whenever I go live, I actually have a backup device that is sitting and waiting for me. That if it does go down during the actual live stream, I've actually not had, I've basically said, okay, we've had technical difficulties trying to get to the live stream going live, so we're just going to move it to a different day, right? We've done that. But if we were live during the stream and something actually came up, I actually have a second computer sitting and waiting that if it went down on that one, I'd be able to hopefully pick it up on the second one. We've not actually had to do that to date, crossing my fingers. But if it did actually end up happening that way, then I would hopefully be able to switch to that other device and then basically turn on in that device and continue moving along with basically a brief hiccup. And again, I presume the audience would be completely fine with that, understanding that technology breaks at times and it is what it is. And then finally, you need to set a regular schedule. I chose that once I did the first two live streams that were, again, they were about cybersecurity, not about digital marketing, but I did those two cybersecurity question and answer type events. I decided, okay, I'm going to go live weekly. I'm just going to choose to go live weekly. Maybe it's too often, maybe it's not often enough, but I'm just going to choose that regular schedule. And for me, it ended up working really well for me to just basically say, okay, every Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm just going to go live and I'm going to talk about these digital marketing topics that just come to mind, that come up in the news, that I've been reading about, and I think is important to small businesses to pay attention to. And then the pandemic hit, and there was a lot of discussion that was around what were the topics that businesses should be paying attention to as we were in that kind of dynamic situation, and just trying to be a voice of reason and a voice of hopefully a little bit of motivation for people to not feel despair all the time, and just trying to give clear information as well. And there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation going around, and so that weekly schedule was kind of a really good tempo for me to both pay attention to what I was doing, but also to share that information with my audience. And so you get to choose what your schedule is and know that it may change. You may decide that you want to go live, say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you're going live every other day during the work week. You may decide that you only want to go live every other week or once a month, or whatever the particular tempo is that works best for your business. But once you set that regular schedule, try to stick to it, because then people get a general understanding of where to show up to see you live. And that's going to kind of build a routine for them that is going to make sure that more people show up live each time, right? So it doesn't require as much of reminding with calendar events and publishing more content and so on and so forth. People just know, okay, if I show up on Mondays at 11 a.m., Raymond is likely going to be live, and so we can then experience whatever content he has to share with us this week. And so those are my real 4 steps for just like getting started, getting your feet wet with going live. Build an agenda and make sure those goals match up. Make sure that you're choosing your live stream platform kind of clearly, to make sure that it's fitting what you're trying to do, because many times one platform doesn't necessarily work with another, and so you want to make sure that you are using the live stream. Not everybody has to go live like I do on many different platforms, and you might just decide that you're going live on just one platform and going live there, and that's it. You may decide that that's all you need, and honestly, it probably is best for most businesses to focus on one live stream platform before they're doing multi-streaming. It helps you to grow, make mistakes with a small audience, and then fix those things, and then go big from there. Getting your equipment and infrastructure in place, and then finally setting a regular schedule. Those are really your core components for being able to go live, and you will then have more effective and hopefully clear mechanisms for being able to go live. And so with that, that brings us to Q&A. And so if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw those into the chat. For those of you who are connecting on the webinar panel, you'll see the Q&A panel there. For those of you who are joining me from within the Web and Beyond community, you have the chat, and so feel free to throw your questions into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer those. And so let me get over to here, and I can find our chat over here. It doesn't look like we have any questions in the webinar panel, and I don't see any questions in the chat for that. Oh, I'm seeing a question come in from Robin. Hi, Robin. How's it going? Robin's one of my super fans who is frequently on the Web and Beyond Live. So thank you, Robin, for always being there. I really appreciate that. And so Robin's asking, how many episodes should you have on your agenda ahead of time? That's a really great question. And again, I would say one. Like the fact of the matter is that the way in which if you're setting a tempo of say a weekly schedule like I have, I'm only planning for the next one, and so it really keeps me focused on just that next episode to be prepared for, and that doesn't mean that I don't have other episodes. For example, I've currently 3 different episodes that I want to do on Web and Beyond Live that are more timeless episodes, but they're a culmination of things that have been happening in the past probably 6 months in the social media world. And so that topic keeps moving based on the news of the day, right? There are big things that I want to talk about that are more important, big reports that come out that I want to kind of cover for folks. And so that ends up trumping and pushing those topics out further. And so those are ones that I'm actually doing a little bit more preparation for than just say a general weekly show where I've prepared based on what is happening in this past week. So for me, it's only been really one show ahead of time with maybe a couple that are more like if we had a completely dud week, for example, like no news happened, which is I don't think really possible, but that could happen. I would easily be able to stack the shows with a few episodes that I have in the back of my mind that I would want to talk about, like things that I want to talk about that I think are really important that I really wouldn't do a full webinar for, right? It's just like my shows are only 30 minutes long, as you know, Robin, but for everybody else's edification here, my shows are only 30 minutes long. And so I don't need to, do a full explication on X topic just for the sake of it. I can just very surgically talk about that topic, and it's useful to the people who are there. And so hopefully that helps. I think that for you, if you wanted to do a weekly show, for example, I would plan out the next 3 or 4 episodes so that you kind of have an idea when you get started, and then from there you would start to understand what content do you want to put into the live streams, and that will help tell you what content you need to prepare for and how much lead time you need to prepare for each one of them. So for example, if you were going to do like a live stream where you're interviewing people, that would require you to actually prepare maybe 5, 6, 7 shows ahead of time, because you need to schedule with those people, make sure they're on the calendar. You want to give people a month and a half lead time to make sure they know they're going to be on the show. All of that stuff is necessary. And so you're going to then have your episodes designed far further out in advance than you would otherwise. And so that's just kind of one of those things where if you are thinking about this from a, like what's my agenda going to be for each live stream, or like what the template's going to be like, what's the flow, each of the segments as you make your way through the show, any given show, and what's the goal for the audience at the end of each of those. What do you want them to achieve? What do you want that arc of engagement to look like? And then what do you want the business to achieve by virtue of doing this? Those 3 components, what you want them to get out of that, what value are they getting out of it, what's the engagement you want during the show, and then getting to the end of the show and having a call to action. And so Robin's noting here that she blogs pretty regularly and was thinking of recapping the blogs, which are really tips, quotes, and key business lessons. And I think that would be a great idea. Again, the whole notion would be, what do you want to do in combination with your audience, right? It's about the collaboration and co-creation component here, which is that I'm hoping that even if no one is talking back to me during the live stream, which, as you know, Robin, you may be commenting with me during the live stream and having that conversation with me. What I'm hoping is that the dialogue is happening on the audience side, that they are engaging and discussing with each other, as well as just internally, okay, maybe I should do this, or Ray mentioned to me for the 50th time that I should have a password manager. And now maybe I should go ahead and implement getting a password manager so that I have a little bit greater security when I am trying to go out there and do digital marketing. And that means I'm going to be more efficient with my digital marketing, which means it's less onerous, which means I am going to be more likely, motivated or have the momentum to go ahead and do my digital marketing because I'm not fishing for passwords and so on and so forth. So yeah, I love the idea of it. It just ends up being, how does the agenda work for being able to get all of that going? So touch base with me offline, and I'm happy to discuss that with you. Becky is asking here the platforms that she recommends from for going live. So Becky, what I would answer for you here is that um, I chose to go live on YouTube Live again. In full disclosure, being the Google Small Business Advisor for productivity, I have I'm what do you call it? I discriminate toward using YouTube Live because that's the platform where I feel most comfortable, and that's where most people watch video today. Right, YouTube is the second largest social network on the planet, just behind Facebook, and so we have to keep that into consideration when we're thinking about live streams. That being the case, though, it really ends up being, if you look at the panoply of available platforms, right? You have YouTube Live, you have Facebook Live, which is probably the second largest. You then have other social networks that have brought it online, right? So you have Instagram, which we can kind of couple together with Facebook since they're owned by Facebook, but Instagram Live, which is its own beast in a way. We have LinkedIn Live. Again, you have to apply to be able to go live on LinkedIn. But again, if you're going to and trying to find a business audience, that's one of those things that I think that as soon as I'm able to go live on LinkedIn, I will probably just stop doing I won't stop doing it, but I will multi-stream to LinkedIn Live, and I will be focused on LinkedIn Live far more than I will be on Facebook Live or Twitter Live or otherwise. So thinking about the platform in terms of where is your audience currently, and are you capable of going live there? So that's how I would see it, is if your platform, your social network of choice has a live stream capability, choose that live stream and go with it. Okay. Um, any other questions? I'm just looking in the chat panel here, and thank you, Becky, for that question. And so, yeah, I think we've run through all the questions here. I think any other questions that anyone else has after the fact, feel free to either shoot me an email or again at W3 Consulting on Twitter. W3 Consulting Twitter is my handle on Twitter. I'm always happy to answer questions there. Feel free to shoot me an email there. My email address is on the screen, and I can hopefully help set you in the right direction regarding going live. And otherwise, thank you all for joining me here for this Web and Beyond webinar for Lessons from a Year Going Live. And starting next month, we're going to be doing, in essence, going into our formerly normal tempo, which was to have 2 webinars per month, one every 2 weeks. And so we will start doing that. But otherwise, thank you all for joining me here for this webinar, and I will see you next time.